Hello and welcome to the first ever PRO podcast. I am Aaron Bass, an Associate Director here at the PR Office, and I'm joined today by Philip Rosenberg, who is an Associate Director and former Labour Councillor, and Gabriel Hedengren, who is a part of our Public Affairs team here at the PR Office. We are sitting here the Wednesday before Labour Party conference. There are a couple of major political events happening between now and Labour Party conference, but we are doing a preview of the conference. Gabriel is attending and Phil is a veteran, so it'll be really good to get both of their views on what to expect. So starting off with you, Gabriel, can you talk us a bit about the political scene, what's led us to this point, and what we can expect at conference?
Yeah, so obviously just the last few months have been very tumultuous in politics and society overall. Not so much for once inside the Labour Party, but it's still obviously going to reflect a lot on the event starting this coming weekend. So obviously we have a new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, that's new in the role, and we're still waiting to see really how she settles in, given the fact that she became PM the same week of the Queen's passing, which was unfortunate. So there's sort of still a lot of questions more generally around what is the new administration going to do, what's their strategy going to be, and then what's the response going to be from Labour, which is an interesting position at the moment as well, obviously with Keir Starmer having been in place for a while, a bit warm in his shoes, and seeing how him and the party sort of respond to the new leadership and the new direction of it, because it is very different to what we saw under Boris Johnson, and then just getting the mood really of the Labour Party and whether it feels a bit more bold and sort of motivated as we sort of could become nearer and nearer to the election, whether that's in a few years or sooner. So yeah, it's an interesting time. The other thing that really sticks out in the programme are all the sessions on green issues. So that's, green transport, energy, various types of fuel policies, everything tied to environment. There's lots on it, and Labour's in a really interesting position now where it's facing a new government, the new Truss administration, which is backtracking both rhetorically and in terms of policy on the previous government's relatively ambitious approach to meeting sort of international environmental targets and decarbonising the UK economy. So I think Labour's going to identify that as an area where it can really go against the government. And given the backtracking of Truss and her team, they can basically stay where they have been and stick to the kinds of targets that government and the civil service have discussed with companies for years now, and what's already in the plans for most of the economy, and still be seen as quite radical and use that as a stick against the new administration. So I really look forward to seeing any announcements in that area and what will be said at the various events, and any response from the government to that. I think that will be interesting.
I mean, for me, I think absolutely the question is, can Labour and Keir Starmer deliver? You've got a new Conservative government, as Gabe's saying, that faces a really difficult series of challenges, economic challenges. Also, they've been in for a long time, and there is a feeling in some quarters that they're looking a bit tired. Now, Labour, in the opposition 13 years in, really should be in a position to be capitalising on that, and Labour really needs a big conference to show that it is a government in waiting. And so I think a lot of the questions will be about what is the tone of that? Are the policy announcements beginning to come through that really position Labour in that space? I think two other things to watch out for. Obviously, Keir Starmer's been leader now for almost 2.5 years, but there's still, and you'll see this in the Fringe programme, bits of the Labour left doing things. Now, is that now a healthy conversation between different parts of the movement, or is there still kind of combat between the moderate and left wing of the party? And I think that's going to be interesting to see. Have they moved on, as Keir Starmer's tried to see? And linked to the other point I made about electability, there's quite a few bits in the programme there about the red wall and about Scotland. And obviously, if Labour's going to win a majority government in 2024, whenever the election is called, it's going to need to show that it's on course to turn things around in the red wall in Scotland.
And how do you think they're going to cope with that going in as favourites tag? I don't think they've gone in as favourites for election for a very long time, and party conference is happening when they are slightly ahead in the polls. How do you see that playing out?
I think they're going to try and manage expectations around that. I mean, obviously they are some way back. It's very difficult for them to make policy announcements. As we saw, they were the first people to announce a freeze on energy prices, but then the Conservatives stole their clothes. Often that happens when you're in opposition. You have a good policy, the government nicks it, and people associate it with the government. So there's going to be this balance between saying, this is what a Labour government would look like, really give us a good look, and not giving too much away too early.
And what can we expect actually through the programme? I know, Gabe, you spent a long time trawling your way through it. Anything that stood out for you, any highlights or any potential rumours around policy that we can expect?
So there is, as always at these events, a huge spread. I think, Phil, you already brought up some of the sort of trends that you can see in terms of wider sort of electoral strategy, tied to the red wall, vulnerable communities. That obviously ties in across lots of different policy areas, but then especially economically and financially, what kind of support can Labour offer that sets them apart from what the government is doing. And I guess it is an interesting point at the moment because the government is going in with a very sort of new specific framing around what they want to do with the economy that's more focused on business and growth and less on sort of communities and regeneration and sort of the more regional aspect of investment when it comes to economic policy. So there's a lot around that that you can see. But then, no, I think in overall, Labour's in a position now where it needs to really strengthen its position across the board and profile all of its shadow spokespeople, and as Phil said, show that they're government in waiting. So I think it's important for them to not be sort of too pigeonholed or seen to sort of ignore an area that, you know, where they need to be ready to govern shortly. But yeah, I definitely have a feeling that the sort of economic side of things will be very key and what people look out for. So
Phil, anything that jumped off for you, or any potential banana skins even?
Well, I think it was really interesting in the first PMQs that Liz Truss did, where there's this battle set up about tax, which is really interesting, where Keir Starmer said, okay, you're freezing, but you're not raising taxes, so who pays? And it said it's the future generations, and really trying to win the argument that really the big corporations should be paying, because there had been this kind of ruling out of a corporation tax. But that's potentially a banana skin, because Liz Truss is quick in response is, oh, Labour seeing taxation as the answer always. And I think that's an interesting dynamic. I think what Labour has to try and do is steal back the mantle of aspiration. Some of the government's economic policies are under question, and maybe there's an opportunity for Labour to say, actually, we are the responsible party for the economy, and if they can win the battle on the economy, that is a big deal. The other thing I would say is, and Gabe began to hint at this here, the Conservative Party is really setting itself up as the party of the individual, whereas Labour is the party of the community and you know, the state and public services. And so is there an opportunity for Labour to put that message out in a way that wins public support? You know, can we fund the NHS and social care whilst freezing taxes? I mean, these are going to be the questions where Labour may feel it can win back some ground.
I think, interestingly, this is also going to be the first time, certainly I can remember, that there's going to be a fiscal event, which, as we said, is going to happen on Friday. Saturday, Sunday, Labour's going to gather. They don't really know what's coming, and that presents a whole load of new challenges. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think there's a real opportunity for the government here to spring a surprise. But I would say that the surprise cuts both ways. So if they haven't really tested the policies yet, and they end up having some that are pretty difficult to swallow, Labour could really make the government perform some embarrassing U-turns or really put them under pressure. So, you know, government advantage government, but potentially once they've thrown it out, Labour might see the holes that usually in the build-up there's scrutiny that allows the government to get away with it. They've not got that luxury, and maybe that's an opportunity for Labour.
Very interesting. And Phil, as we said at the start, you're very much a veteran of the conference landscape. I wouldn't try and guess how many you've been to, but I'm sure it's well into the teens. And you're not that old, for those who can't see you. What are your thoughts about, what are your key tips for anyone going for a first time, or if you're a client going there? What would you recommend, and what should be aware of?
I've got 5 key tips, which I'll try and run through really quickly. They are target, eat, drink, rest and charge. And by those things, I mean, target, you really want to have a good look at the program and think, what are the sessions that are going to have the most value? Oftentimes, people will say they've invited someone. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be there, but making sure you've got a game plan, where you want to be, who you want to speak to, and who you want to network with, and being in the right position in the room to do that. Eating is very important. You know, it is exhausting. You cover a lot of ground. It's a big area conference, and a lot of the venues for fringe events are going to be in different spaces. So making sure you're taking the time to recharge, get refueled, have a nice meal in the evening often was the way I used to deal with it, and making sure you've got that break so that you can do the things before and after well. And the after is important. I say drink, and some people don't drink alcohol, but the evening scene is really important, and being there in the bars, hearing what the mood is, seeing whether people how people feel about the day. Often people get a bit looser lipped, and you can hear some often quite senior people saying things about the way they see the world and the way they see conference. So really important to make sure you're in the bars that evening. Resting is important, as I say, huge scope of ground to cover, so making sure you take some time out, have a coffee, meet a friend if you know some people there, just take the time out to make sure you recharge. And when I speak about charging, take a battery pack. It's very, very easy to run out of juice while you're there, and making sure that and there aren't that many plug sockets to charge into, so making sure you're ready to recharge your phone so that you're ready to go.
Some useful tips for you there, Gabe. Anything that you're really looking forward to, or perhaps dreading?
No, I'm not dreading anything really. I am bracing myself for this humongous event, but mainly with excitement of all the different talks and all the different people that I'll have the chance to speak to, and just being there and feeling the mood, I guess, is the unique thing that others won't be able to do. So yeah, it's going to be really insightful and useful few days, and I can't wait to share what I see and find there with the team and clients and others too.
Fantastic. Well, Gabe and the rest of our team at conference will be providing updates on relevant sessions to our clients. If you are a client and you're listening to this, please do be in touch if there's anything particularly you would like to know, and we will be back with a preview podcast of the Conservative Party conference this time next week. Thanks to everyone here, and thanks to you, the listeners. Thank you.